Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into the latest from Block, specifically their Q1 2025 shareholder letter and the investor presentation that goes with it.
That's right.
And our mission here really is to cut through all the jargon and pull out the key stuff, what's happening with their performance, their strategies, where they're heading.
Yep, try and make sense of it all quickly.
So you can be well informed without wading through everything yourself. We're your guides today.
Exactly. And we've got the two main sources. The shareholder letter gives you that kind of narrative overview, the strategic thinking behind the numbers.
Right, the story they want to tell.
Yeah. And then the investor presentation, that's more visual, more summarized, lots of charts, key financials, operational highlights, crunched down.
Okay, so we're piecing those together for the full picture.
We are trying to synthesize it all, pull out what you really need to know about Block right now, and yeah, what they're planning.
Okay, let's get into it then. So right off the bat, Block does admit the first half of 2025, growth has been a bit slower than maybe they wanted.
Yeah, they acknowledge that.
But they sound pretty confident, maybe even very confident, that gross profit growth is going to speed up, like significantly, in the second half and looking further out.
Right, and they've put a number on the full year 2025 now. The revised gross profit guidance is $9.96 billion.
Okay, $9.96 billion. How does that compare?
Well, it's still 12% year-over-year growth, which is, pretty solid, but it is a revision.
And they're expecting a strong finish to the year.
They are. They said they anticipate mid-teens gross profit growth in Q4, so that implies, quite a ramp up from where they are now.
Right, so what about the immediate next quarter, Q2?
For Q2, they're expecting gross profit around $2.45 billion. That works out to about 9.5% year-over-year growth.
So still single digits in Q2.
Yeah.
But then a jump expected starting Q3? That seems to be the main story on growth.
That's the narrative, yeah. A definite expectation of acceleration from Q3 onwards.
And they mentioned their financial framework too, the rule of X stuff?
Uh-huh. They're targeting what they call a rule of 31 for the full year 2025.
Okay, refresh us quickly. What's that mean?
So it's a benchmark used a lot in tech. You add the growth rate, in this case, gross profit growth, to the profit margin. Here it's adjusted operating income margin.
I got it.
And they want that total number to hit 31 for the year.
And long term?
Long term, they reiterated the rule of 40 is still the goal, the guiding principle, so higher ambition down the road.
Okay, makes sense. Let's break down the two big parts of the business then. Cash App first. How did it do in Q1?
Cash App gross profit came in at $1.38 billion. That's up 10% compared to Q1 last year.
10%.
Yeah.
And what else stood out in the Cash App numbers?
Well, something pretty interesting is the gross profit per active user, per monthly transacting active.
Okay.
That hit $81 on an annualized basis, and that's up 9% year over year.
So even if overall user growth isn't explosive, they're making more from each active user.
Exactly. They're monetizing that existing base more effectively.
And what about money coming into the app, inflows?
Those were up too. Inflows per transacting active grew 8% year over year, hitting $355.
Wow.
And they specifically called out paycheck deposits being a big driver there. More people having their salary go straight into Cash App.
That links to their banking ambitions.
Yeah.
But what about the total user number? You mentioned profit per user.
Yeah, and that's the slightly different part of the story. The overall number of monthly transacting actives was, well, flat year over year, still at 57 million.
Flat. Okay, so no net new monthly users compared to last year.
Basically, yeah. But, and this is important, within that 57 million, the number using the Cash App card every month, that grew.
Okay.
Up 7% year over year to 25 million monthly card actives.
So almost half the actives are using the card monthly now, and that group is growing.
Right. It suggests deeper engagement, maybe. People aren't just using it for P2P. They're using the card for everyday spending. That represents, a growing slice of the pie.
Okay, so maybe the quality of engagement is shifting up, even if the total number isn't.
Interesting. What about some of the specific products or strategies for Cash App? Borrow, for instance.
Yeah, Borrow was definitely a huge focus area. They got that FDIC approval for Square Financial Services, their internal bank, to issue loans nationwide.
Right, that was big news.
Huge.
Yeah.
So now they're rolling Borrow out to millions more users.
Okay.
They said basically doubling the number of people eligible.
Wow, doubling the reach.
Yeah. And they're tweaking the product too, looking at higher limits, trying to make the experience better, using machine learning, they say, to keep loss rates healthy.
Seems like a major growth engine, potentially.
It really does. And they're tying it into paycheck deposits too.
How so?
Well, they mentioned that they're increasing the borrow limit specifically for people who get their paychecks deposited into Cash App.
Ah, okay. Incentivizing that direct deposit relationship. Exactly. They've seen that if you have direct deposit set up and you get offered a borrow loan, you're way more likely to take it.
Creates a sticky ecosystem.
That's the idea. It fits right into that bank R-based strategy they talk about.
Explain that bank our base idea a bit more.
Their big ambition is to be like a top financial provider for households earning up to $150K a year. That's their target demographic.
Okay.
And getting people to use paycheck deposit is a key way they measure if they're succeeding. That and gross profit per active user.
Got it. What about Afterpay, the buy now, pay later integration?
So Cash App Afterpay launched in the US. It's now integrated directly inside Cash App.
How's that performing? Or maybe the wider Afterpay business?
It's probably still early days for the Cash App integration specifically, but they shared some encouraging stats about Afterpay consumers overall.
Like what?
Like around 95% of the spending on Afterpay comes from returning customers.
Wow, high repeat usage.
Very high. And 96% of installments get paid on time. Late fees only happen on about 2% of purchases. And the risk loss on the loans is less than 1%.
Sounds pretty healthy. Suggests people are using it responsibly, mostly.
Yeah, the numbers seem to point that way. Healthy user behavior, good risk management on their side.
Okay. And are they doing anything else to grow the Cash App network itself? Just getting more people using it in general?
Yeah, several things. They made it easier to sign up on the web on a desktop, not just the mobile app. That happened in April.
Opens up different marketing channels, maybe.
Exactly. They're also adding new peer-to-peer features, tweaking referral programs, and interestingly, they mentioned a real focus now on attracting teens and families.
Teens. Okay, that's a specific demographic push.
Yeah, they launched their first teen-focused referrals campaign also in April. They see it as a big opportunity, maybe underserved currently.
Makes sense. Get them in early.
Yeah.
Anything else on Cash App strategy? Marketing?
Definitely boosting marketing. They said high ROI marketing spend in Q2 will be up almost 50% compared to Q1.
50%. Wow.
Yeah, and that includes this big national brand campaign they kicked off in March, trying to build trust, position Cash App as that all-in-one financial tool.
And you mentioned optimizing controls, too. What's that about?
Just briefly, they mentioned working on their internal product controls, basically trying to stop bad actors or unwanted activity, but without making things difficult for legitimate users. It's always a balancing act, right?
For sure. Okay, lots going on with Cash App. Let's switch gears to Square, the seller side of the business.
Yeah.
How did Square do in Q1?
Square also had, pretty steady growth. Gross profit was $898 million, up 9% year over year.
9%. Similar to Cash App's growth rate then.
Roughly, yeah. And their gross payment volume, the total value of transactions they process for sellers?
GPV, right?
GPV, yeah. That grew 7.2% year over year, or 8.2% if you adjust for currency changes. So solid underlying growth there, too.
Where did that Square growth come from mainly?
They highlighted three main drivers for gross profit.
Yeah.
Their banking products for sellers.
Like Square checking or loans?
Exactly. Then their software subscriptions, things like appointments, payroll, marketing.
Right.
And just the core integrated payments processing itself.
Any particular type of seller driving growth?
Yeah.
Small businesses, big ones.
This was interesting. They said growth actually accelerated more in their mid-market seller segment.
You find mid-market for them.
Businesses doing over $500,000 a year in GPV through Square.
Okay, larger businesses.
Yeah. And that segment now makes up 41% of Square's total GPV. So they're definitely having success moving upmarket, attracting bigger sellers.
That feels like a significant shift, or at least a growing trend.
It does. It shows the platform is scaling to meet more complex needs.
How did the different industries do within Square, like restaurants versus retail?
Food and beverage GPV was up 10% year over year. Retail was up 7%, and services grew 5%. So pretty healthy across the board, maybe a bit stronger in food and bev.
Okay, and what are Square's big priorities looking forward? What's the strategy?
It seems to be about continuing to build out the platform, making it robust, providing more localized experiences, so catering better to specific geographies or business types.
Makes sense.
Using AI more, we can probably talk more about that later, and expanding those banking integrations we mentioned.
And just getting and keeping sellers, presumably.
Oh, absolutely. Increasing retention of the sellers they have and driving acquisition of new ones. That's fundamental. They feel like faster product development and more go-to-market investment are starting to pay off there.
They mentioned gaining market share.
Yeah, they said they believe they're gaining share in their core verticals and that more large sellers are choosing them. Signing deals like Bamboo Dessert and Drinks, which has like 60 plus locations, is evidence of that.
And they had a big product announcement event.
Right, their first seasonal release event was on May 13th. They apparently showcased over 100 new products and features.
100. Wow. What's the point of doing an event like that?
It's a way to bundle announcements, create some buzz, show momentum, highlight innovation, to attract new sellers and get existing ones to use more of the platform, keep them engaged.
Any specific new Square features that caught your eye from the letter or presentation?
A few things. They made Square Online simpler for restaurants setting up online ordering.
Okay. Improving usability.
Yeah. And making Square checking the default place money goes for new solo entrepreneurs. That's clearly designed to drive adoption of the banking features.
Push banking, right.
Definitely. They also upped the invoice limit to $1 million for professional services sellers, lowered some delivery fees for restaurants using on-demand delivery, better integrations with Uber Eats and DoorDash too.
So lots of tweaks and improvements across different business types.
Seems like it. Tailoring things more.
What about sales and marketing for Square? Are they investing there too?
Yes, they're growing their field sales team, seeing good results from partnerships generating leads, both here and internationally. And marketing spend for Square was up 33% year over year in Q1.
33%, also a big jump. Are they seeing returns?
They reported strong returns on that spend, so yeah, seems like the investment is working according to them.
Okay. Now, zooming out from Cash App and Square specifically, there was talk about company-wide stuff, particularly this agentic systems push, codenamed Goose.
Ah, yes, Goose. This sounds like a pretty fundamental long-term bet they're making.
What exactly is it?
They're basically trying to rebuild how the entire company works using AI-powered systems, these agentic systems. The initial focus is on engineering.
Oh, so
Using AI to help engineers build, test, and deploy code faster and more efficiently. They actually claimed it's already led to a 30% increase in engineering productivity.
30%, that's huge, if accurate.
It's a big number, yeah. But the vision goes way beyond just engineering.
That-
They want to roll these systems out to every role in the company. Think HR, finance, marketing, support. Using AI agents to automate tasks, improve efficiency everywhere.
That's incredibly ambitious, like automating parts of everyone's job.
That seems to be the direction. The goal for this year is to get a single interface for all these internal functions running on Goose.
Wow.
And longer term, this is where it gets really interesting. They want to integrate Goose into the customer products.
How would that work?
They talk about it becoming like a personal CFO within Cash App. Imagine an AI proactively giving you financial advice, maybe automating savings or budgeting based on your goals.
Like a proactive financial assistant.
Exactly. And for Square sellers, they envision it as a personal COO, Chief Operating Officer, automating business workflows, maybe handling scheduling or inventory through natural language commands.
Okay, that's potentially transformative if they can pull it off. A very different kind of product experience.
Very different. They also mentioned expecting the first gross profit from Proto, that's their internal chip and systems development project, in the second half of 2025, so hardware contributing too.
Right, their custom silicon efforts.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's just hit the main financial highlights for Q1 again, the big numbers.
Sure. So company-wide gross profit, $2.29 billion, up 9% year over year.
Okay.
Operating income was $329 million. That's a 14% margin. Adjusted operating income hit a record $466 million for a 20% margin.
Record adjusted OI margin. Okay. Net income.
Net income was $190 million. Adjusted EBITDA was $813 million.
Strong profitability metrics.
Yeah, and adjusted free cash flow is also strong at $727 million for the quarter.
And they were buying back stock.
They were. Repurchased about 6.8 million shares for $445 million in Q1, and they ended the quarter with $9.2 billion in total liquidity. So strong balance sheet.
Okay, so pulling it all together for this deep dive, it sounds like Block is, well, navigating maybe a slightly slower patch in early 2025, but they got a clear plan, or at least a strong belief, in accelerating growth later this year.
Yeah, that's the key message. Confidence in the second half.
And that acceleration seems pinned on a few key things. Cash App momentum, especially from pushing borrow out wider, integrating Afterpay, expanding the network, including that teen focus.
Right, and continuing to get more value per active user.
And then on the Square side, continued strength, especially moving upmarket with bigger sellers, leaning into banking product software and strategic partnerships.
And investing heavily in marketing and sales across both platforms.
Plus, this huge overarching bet on AI and these agentic systems, Goose, to drive long-term efficiency and maybe even new customer experiences.
Exactly. It's a multi-pronged strategy. Investing in the core, investing in efficiency, investing in future growth drivers like borrow and AI, while keeping an eye on profitability, hitting that rule of 31 target this year.
Okay, so here's a thought to leave you with.
Mm-hmm.
It really picks up on that AI piece.
Mm-hmm.
Block is clearly serious about embedding AI deep within the company and in what you see as a customer.
Mm.
So imagine they actually succeed in creating that personal CFO in Cash App,
Yeah.
or that personal COO in Square. What could be the biggest change, the most transformative impact of having that kind of intelligence built right into your financial app or your business platform?
Yeah, what does that actually do?
What new things become possible? Or maybe what new challenges or questions does it raise for you managing your money or running your business day to day?
That's a really interesting question to chew on. What does that future actually look like?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.